Welcome to all of you. Well, it's exciting to share with you tonight. As you can see from the screen, we have something to share, and on top of that, question to ask. And so it's going to be a really interesting night tonight. We've got some guests that we've met, and like I always say, and you've heard me say this many, many times before, is that I feel like we're on a purposeful journey, and there's been too many coincidences which have happened over the last couple of years to really kind of push us in the right direction. And for me, if it all was meant to be a fluke, then there's just too many, and I've stopped actually wondering. And I'm going to share with you tonight what that is all about. So I've got Scott, I've got Randy, I've got Kevin and myself, and I know that David Orban is joining us a little bit later. I just wanted to welcome you both on. So Randy, we've got from the UAE, and Scott, we've got from San Francisco, and Kevin is at a Fintech, what would you call it, a venture event with the AWS guys in Cape Town.
How's it, everybody?
So guys, I'm going to rock and roll here. I want to do a little bit of an intro as to how we are and where we are and what the purpose of tonight's update is. I can see there's a lot of people online and a lot of people joining, and for those of you going to watch the recording, I think what's really important here, and I just want to get my screen to full screen. Are you seeing the top and bottom of my screen, Kevin, or are you just seeing the PowerPoint?
We're seeing the top and the bottom of your screen, so we can see all your icons as well as the PowerPoint. There we go. Now it's just the PowerPoint.
Okay. So I want to just start with the currency of the new economy is trust. The #1 barrier to entry that we've had is trust. The #1 barrier to entry we will have going into the future is trust. And ultimately, it's how do we solve trust. And we spent a huge amount of time and energy at the Wealth Weekend exactly on this topic in terms of how do we actually do it. And we believe that really there's two different ways. There's the old way and there's the new way. The old way was about unnecessary middlemen incurring large costs, limited trust, transparency, and accessibility, slow, efficient, and expensive processes, and difficult to understand investment contracts. The new way is very different. It's about no hidden middlemen, reducing the costs, increasing the returns, increasing the trust, transparency, and accessibility for all. The marketplace delivers faster, cheaper, better user experience, and simple, user-friendly, and intuitive contracts. So that's really where we're coming from. That's our kind of intuition of where the world is changing. And I think what's important is that I wanted to just share with you some of the results that have been achieved. So what's fascinating for us is that you'll see, August is not over. We're probably not going to go past July, although we're above June. And the reason being is that we closed out the e-resorts in July. And, so it caused quite a big spike. But the good news is long-term, the trend continues just to go in the right direction in terms of our transactions and what is actually happening and where we actually are. The other thing that I think is tremendously exciting is that Kevin literally found out yesterday that we've now got members from over 100 countries. And yesterday, an investor invested in Medical Aid, and which means we now have investors from 40 different countries. And if I remember rightly, Kevin, the 100 countries, the one was from Brunei that signed up. Is that right?
That's right. So 100th country member is Brunei, and the 40th country investor is from Estonia.
Wow. So there's not many platforms out there that can boast investors from 40 different countries around the world. And this is not about where we're going. This is not about a white paper. This is not about what we want to do. This is about what we've done. We already have members in 196 cities around the world. And I'm not sure if you know, but there's only 195 countries in the world. And so we're more than halfway there already. I think we're now, in terms of our stats, we're over $62 million through the platform, over 1,300 transactions, an average of $47,000 per transaction. And we paid dividends out of $3.4 million to date. And I think, we all know about the awards and what's happening. And again, I want to reiterate for everyone is that we've built a global real estate marketplace, and we're not talking about what we're going to do. We've done it. We've done 1,300 plus transactions on the blockchain, $62 million from 40 different countries. In terms of the funding, we spent a huge amount of time both before the Wealth Weekend and at the Wealth Weekend. We said we had very much a three-phase strategy. The first phase was to raise $2.5 million to ultimately fund the business and to give an entire runway through for 12 months so that we could really grow the business and allow us to take the business to the next level. The The second part of the equation was to do the marketplace rollout, where we get the country partners on the ground and we look them to effectively self-fund them in their different regions. We've done that. We've now finalized our GMs in Dubai, in England, in America. We've already got our GM in Australia. We've already got our GM in China. And we've already got all our events booked, which hopefully Kevin shared with you on the Global Wealth Group. And we're about to embark on that campaign starting the 12th of September. And then the plan was to go and to do a global crowdfunding launch. So do something that we know, something, we've always said, let's build a company for investors, by investors. And that was always the plan. And then what happened was, we came across ICOs, and everyone started talking about ICOs. They spoke about the age of ICOs. And, there was a lot of articles coming out saying, move over VCs, ICOs are the way of the future. And then what happened was, interesting enough, we were given this document, and this was by our friends who are online tonight, but I will introduce you properly now. And the advantages of a token sale, I don't expect you to read this whole thing, but what I wanted to share with you is that there's three parts that I've underlined. Firstly, that there's been more money raised in the US through token sales in the first 6 months of 2017, 327 million, than through the traditional venture capital 295. So I think that's very significant, is that this is now more successful than going the venture capital route. And there's two reasons why it's actually even better in terms of what's happening. And the first one is that it allows you to comply, and there's different regulatory environments, but it allows you to comply within those environments and jurisdictions, and ultimately be able to, and this is the one that blows my mind, is be able to raise funds with minimum or no dilution of equity. So if we go and raise $20 million from a venture capitalist, we're going to sell off 25% of the company plus minus. And yet if we raise $20 million through this route, we don't have any dilution of equity. And the second thing that's exciting is that, to some extent, it ties into what we were talking about with the global crowdfunding campaign, but it allows you to go out to your global audience, to get investors, and really to kind of open it up to a much wider audience in a much shorter period of time. And what excites me is they all technically become your not only your community of members on your platform, but also your investors. Now, if you think that we only got excited and we literally built out the technology because of ICOs, I wanted to share with you a mind map, and Jaco Muris, my business partner and the architect behind this, built this out 18 months ago. And it's really a 6-phase process, and we've only ever done phase 1. So I'm not going to spend time tonight, but we've only really had the resources to date to build out phase 1. He wanted to build out phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, phase 5, and phase 6. Now you might just notice there that more than a year ago on our mind map, we wanted to create a global real estate marketplace built on blockchain and ultimately build a cryptocurrency. So the ICO might be something new, but the idea of a cryptocurrency backed by real estate is definitely not something new. For those of you who are at the Wealth Weekend, you will recognize this diagram. Again, I'm not going to go into it in a lot of detail, but this is where we really take things to another level in terms of how we work with a blockchain, with an exchange, in the cloud, where we can use and ultimately build it from a Wealth Migrate perspective, how we can integrate with all the different suppliers around the world, whether they're crowdfunding, private equity, private real estate funds, real estate at a global scale, and most importantly, how we can build out the exchange and the coin. And remember that we're all shareholders in the Global Wealth Group, and therefore anything that happens within the ecosystem is what you own, which is exactly why we didn't sell shares in Wealth Migrate, but in the Global Wealth Group, to allow us to build out our ecosystem. I wanted to share with you one or two last ideas before I hand over. Now, this is a slide that we got from Justin Clark. As you'll know, he's on our board and one of the most influential people in marketplaces and technology globally, and really having a massively positive impact on the board. And he said if you want to build a true marketplace, there's 3 components that you have to have. You have to have a lot of selection, a lot of good quality selection. So Henny and Michiel and Willie and Jacques and all the partners on the ground, that's why we, like we've got in Australia, England, America, we really want to increase the selection. But there's 2 other things that you have to have. You have to have trust. This entire marketplace is built on trust. And then you have to have convenience. If you have people trying and going, doing KYC, and it takes them 3 days, and then they have to send money overseas, and that takes another whole week, and you have to deal with a whole bunch of middlemen and lawyers and all the the trust accounts and everything else. It is a massive friction cost to truly succeeding. And yet through blockchain and through building a cryptocurrency, we can remove all of those barriers, which is why Yaku has been talking for more than a year, and why we launched our marketplace on the blockchain, the very first one globally in real estate back in October 2015. And no, sorry, we're in 2017, October 2016. And what's important here is that with the blockchain technology, we can really solve the trust and the convenience. And by solving the trust and convenience, we can dramatically grow the demand. And so, I think what's important is that there's plenty of ICOs out there in the real estate space. Literally that we've only known about this thing for like the last 2 months. And yet Kevin's been doing a huge amount of work. We're aware at the moment of 9 different ICOs on real estate. The only one that's actually gone out to raise money so far is Proppy. When I checked yesterday, they were on $13.7 million. I can share my screen later. If we've got some time, we can take an update. What blows me away is that most of them have a good idea and or a white paper. They don't really have a use case. So sorry, this is the breakdown, which I'll let Scott talk a lot more, because there's 2 different types, a use case versus a store of wealth. Then you've got built versus POC, and you can see here that POC stands for proof of concept. Like they haven't built anything. Like we've built a marketplace where we've moved $62 million across 40 countries already. And then they talk about being global, but these guys are just in California. These guys are just in Spain. And these guys are, launching in December. And Kevin, you mentioned tonight, as we were about to get online, that there's actually one more that you're aware of.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was going to say, I mean, I came across one today. I was at Startup Grind, and guys are talking about Prosperi Prop, which is another one. But I think their token's called PropX.
Yeah. Anyway, interesting. So it's the very name we've bandied around for a while, which is quite funny. So guys, we need to be very clear here. This has all happened in the last 2 months, and literally daily we're finding out about property ones coming out. So what's interesting is why now? Well, as I said, there's already been 9 ICOs in real estate that we know of, and it's going to be extremely difficult to differentiate yourself a year from now, when there's probably going to be 50, 100, 200. And really, it's going to be, how do you put your hand up and say, yeah, well, we actually the real one. All these other ones didn't know what they're doing. At the moment, as Justin Clark said, Facebook wasn't the first social media. Google wasn't the first search engine. Amazon wasn't even the first e-commerce site. They were the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, but they certainly weren't the 200th, which is important. We also believe that the legislation is going to change. The SEC is talking a lot about the legislation changing. Again, Scott's going to talk about this in Singapore as well, and some of the jurisdictions where they are. The third thing, which I think is very relevant, is that we believe there will be a global economic market correction. It's impossible when you're in such a exuberant boom, that you won't have a market correction. And we believe that, Justin was explaining today, he started private property in 1997, so he existed with a technology company through the dot-com boom bust, and it wasn't fun. And so, one of the things that's a non-negotiable for us is that when we had the dot-com boom bust, everyone said the internet was over. It actually wasn't. The companies with the right fundamentals not only went on to survive, but thrive. And Amazon and Google and Salesforce, Alibaba. And so rather than worrying about whether it's going to crash, I think we can just accept the fact it's going to, and then make sure that that's part of our plan, and make sure that we build the best globally. And then lastly, from a business perspective, we continue to grow. Like I said, we've got investors from 40 countries. Very few. There's no platform in this place, in global real estate marketplace, that can show the numbers that we've got in terms of dominating the global position. But as we've all agreed many times, we need to consolidate and capitalize the business to really unlock this generational opportunity. And in many ways, we're not doing anything different other than just swapping the crowdfunding idea to doing an ICO. And in simple terms, it's raising the capital. It's just not giving away the equity. So the question is that I just want to finish off is how. And really for me, 2 years plus ago, we were talking about blockchain. We were being laughed out the room by both the venture capitalists and the big financial banks and institutions. One of the best lessons I ever learned was in June 2016. Jaco went along to Singularity University. He went to exponential finance. he met the guys from Barclays, he met some of the best blockchain guys in the world, and he got a complete chias as to why we needed blockchain. And credit to Jaco, in literally October 2016, we launched our first version of blockchain. And what really, for me, is sad is that we haven't had the capital and the resources to continue to build out the dream that he designed. And I've already explained to you the 6 phases. Then what happened is we got invited to Startup Bootcamp, and they looked at Wealth Migrate as a whole. They said they'd love to have us, but we're far too big, far too established. So we spoke about taking the blockchain component out and compartmentalizing that. And Kevin and Jaco worked a lot on that. And that really started to get us in the mindset of the difference between the platform and some of the engine. Think of it as Amazon, the marketplace, and AWS, the server company, but still owned by the holding company. And then what happened was that on the 1st of June, we were at a Wealth Partner dinner, and Vuyisa said to us, what do you think of ICOs? And it was quite an embarrassing thing. We'd never heard of an ICO. But our entire business has been built on partnership. So when we went out to find medical buildings in America, we didn't go out to find a building. We went out to find a partner. And that's exactly the way that we have succeeded. Our entire business is built on nature's principles of partnership. And so it was actually at the TIE event, which is one of the top entrepreneurial events in the world, that Kevin organized us to be at. And we fortuitously ran into Scott Myers at that event. He was an American in Cape Town taking a picture of Table Mountain. We invited him to sit at our table. We just started chatting with him. We said, what do you do? He said, I'm an expert in ICOs. We were like, oh, wow, I didn't know that sort of person existed. And without further ado, I really wanted to welcome Scott, his partner Randy, and David, who's going to be joining us tonight. Because like I said to you when I started off, we're on a purposeful journey. And I believe that there was a reason that Scott came out to take a photo, that he was on his own. And I don't know why, but I invited him over to come join us. And, over a beer, we really started to learn properly about these ICOs. And it's with a huge amount of gratitude that I wanted to welcome Scott now and hand over to him as the expert in the space and what the opportunity is for us and how we can go forward. So, Scott, over to you. Thank you very much. It's a great privilege having you online and sharing you with all our wealth partners that are, the fundamental core of this entire organization.
Well, we're thrilled to be here, and we appreciate the opportunity to talk with you about Wealth Migrate's what we call token sale event. There's a lot of concern right now about the impending regulation that's going to happen in the space, and calling things an ICO kind of puts it close to an IPO, which is heavily regulated. And in fact, a token sale event is very, very different. So that's going to be the words I use. So whenever I say that, what I mean is ICO. I'll just.
So just a quick question, Scott. Do you want me to change screens, or are you going to just talk, or do you want me to change screens so that you can show your PowerPoint?
Oh no, I don't have any PowerPoint. It's all going to be verbal. Okay.
No problem. Perfect.
Yeah, so let me introduce, also I believe everyone can see Randy Boyer, who's our Chief of Client Services at Network Society Lab, and he makes the trains run on time. A gentleman who's going to be joining us a little later, he's coming off another call, is David Orban, and he's the managing partner of a sibling organization to ours, which is called Network Society Ventures, which is a venture investment fund. And David is, we also in what we call the Keiretsu, is another company which is a think tank called Network Society Research. And David is a worldwide recognized guru in blockchain, cryptocurrency, token sale events, among many other things. For instance, one of the roles he's going to play in the case of Wealth Migrate is helping us to design the optimal token for the Wealth Migrate application. So those are the folks that are on board here. Randy, say hi to everybody.
Hi, everyone.
Who and what is NSL, Network Society Lab, and we call ourselves a venture development company. And generally what we do is we work with portfolio companies of Network Society Ventures and help them to succeed by adding various types of value. But we have been consumed by token sale events recently, and basically that's all we're doing right now. Generally for portfolio companies of Network Society Ventures, but we also are happy to talk to other people, but we don't do any proactive marketing or outreach. But serendipitously, like with Wealth Migrate, sometimes people come into our world and we can help them, and we like business, and so we decide to go ahead. And I'll just key off one thing that that Scott Picken said earlier, which is one of the advantages that you have as Wealth Migrate in this whole token sales event space is that you have a real business. And because there's so much vaporware and so much hype out there in the world and so much concepting, people who are savvy investors in token sale events are gravitating towards what's called asset-backed token sale events. So that means there's some asset that underlies the token and drives the value of it. And so those are very much coming into favor now. So that's very good for Wealth Migrate in terms of differentiating yourselves among this pack of other things in the real estate space. The way we work in terms of NSL is very much like a Hollywood movie model. We have a relatively small internal staff that includes Randy and myself. David is the chairman, and the thing is.
No, don't worry, it's all good. I've chucked up a poll.
They're polling me about why I'm on the webinar. Sorry, it knocked my my script off here for some reason. I don't know why they want me to take this poll. Anyway, I'll continue.
So quickly, Scott, I've got a couple of poll questions. While you're talking, I chuck up polls so that we keep people engaged, so they're listening and thinking.
Okay. So what should I do here? Just submit this, or
no, you just keep talking, dude. Don't let me interrupt you.
All right, fine. So so we have a relatively small internal staff, which includes Randy, myself, and a few other people. But what we do when we do a token sale event is pull together a world-class team of other service providers that are experts in their different disciplines. And typically that would be a half a dozen contributors of one variety or another. And for the group that we're pulling together for the Wealth Migrate token sale event, literally among them have scores of token sale events under their belt, and some of the very successful ones and very high profile ones that you will have heard about. And so we've got a very deep team, very deep capability in all the aspects that are required to do a successful token sale event. And so our team, I'm very comfortable saying, is as experienced and as capable as any team in the world on this topic. So that's NSL. Now, Scott had asked me to just go over some very high-level information about what are we talking about when we say token sale event. So really what we want to do is start off the description by saying what's a token. And very, very simply, based upon blockchain technology, which I'm going to assume that you know a bit about since you're familiar with what Wealth Migrate has done in that realm. But it's a secure, decentralized online system for recording transactions, including what are known as cryptocurrencies and smart contracts. And a blockchain token is a unit of value within the blockchain. And it functions according to a smart contract. And sometimes these are currencies, and sometimes they're just a store of value of some type. And so we don't see Wealth Migrate having a token that's like Bitcoin or Ether, where it's a common currency, but we see it as something that will be a store of value and something that would be of relevance to the Wealth Migrate community, while being available for on exchanges, so that if you wanted to sell your Wealth Migrate token and get Bitcoin, for instance, you would be able to do that. So there would still be the liquidity there, but we wouldn't think of it as a currency. And we've just begun the token design process, so the specifics of that will be determined over the next month, and at that point in time we can communicate that out to people. So in a token sale event, or what's commonly called an ICO, is simply a process whereby you make the tokens available for purchase by various groups that have an interest in Wealth Migrate. And according to CB Insights, which is in my view the best research company out there, to date in 2017, there's been $1.5 billion raised in token sale events, aka ICOs. So we're at a Cambrian explosion period for new tokens. And that's great for Wealth Migrate, particularly because I think it can be highly differentiated, given that there's a real business underlying the token. What are the benefits of tokens and token sales events? One is it's non-dilutive, so you can raise $20 million as Scott suggested, but it doesn't affect at all and has nothing to do with the equity or debt structure of the company. So for people like yourselves who are very early investors, this is a complete game changer. And Scott, you mentioned that if you went out to venture capitalists and raised $20 million, you'd have to get 25% of the company. I think you would be lucky to give up that amount. I'm thinking more like 50, 60%.
I agree with you. I mean, best case scenario, but I mean, the way you'd be selling some of the company.
So this is a complete game changer because it really rewards both the early investors in the company because they're not diluted to the extent that they would have been otherwise, and also the management of the company. It allows the management of the company to really stay in control and implement the vision of their company, in the way that they originally conceived it. The other thing that's important about this is that these things, the tokens, once the ICO is open, the token sale event is open, can be purchased worldwide, online, instantaneously by anybody. And this is completely different than what happens in a regulated equity environment, what have you. And at the end, it creates no financial or fiduciary obligation on the company. And so these are major advantages. The way these things are structured is there's really, we think of it in 4 phases. What we call the pre-sale, which is what we're talking with you about, where you offer the best terms possible and the best terms available to friends, family, close partners and whatnot, people you want to have involved, and they get the best possible deal on the coins, which Scott's going to talk about what they're offering here in a bit. Once that's done, and you've raised the money for the pre-sale, then you go out to what's called a pre-sale, and that's where you publicly announce, generally, what the that the token's available, and you also give a favorable discount, but not as favorable as the people who are in the pre-sale. But you generally put the word out, particularly in the crypto community, but we would also, in the case of Wealth Migrate, communicate this out to the real estate community, that there is this deal available, and if you buy before the ICO, then you can get the pre-sale price, which is a significant bonus. And generally, the pre-sale period will last for about a month. The pre-sale period will last for maybe a month or two. And then you have the token sale event, and that's when it's really a public sale that's managed through a website. So the way people buy them is they go onto a landing page, and they can freely purchase these things on the landing page. And I think Scott's going to give an example of one of them.
Yeah, like the one I've got for Proppy here.
Yeah.
So you should be able to see my screen just confirm. So they've got 15 days to go. They've raised 13.84 million. So I'm a little bit down on where I was, what I told you. You can see the discounts that like Scott's talking about here. And it's just basically a landing page. But yeah, they've basically got 15 days to go. So this is a classic example of what he's talking about. And the other thing is they create a white paper and it's basically a document around their business plan, etc. Sorry, back to you, Scott.
So the token sale event will be open for generally 30 days. It could be as much as a couple of months, but I recommend 30 days, and there's no reason to in today's environment to take more time. And then the fourth period is post-token sale event, and that has to do with managing the value of the token, making sure that there are good ways to get liquid on the tokens without negatively affecting the price, and various other things that basically help to support the appreciation of the token. And with that, I see that David Orban, our resident guru on all things technical, is now with us. Hello, David. Say hello to everybody.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and so you came in at the perfect time, David. I've just kind of gone through the whole arc of, who are we, what are tokens, what's a token sale event. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
There are very important advantages of this new tool that has become available to all stakeholders whose interests are really well aligned because of how the network of value that the tokens design, together with obviously the platform that embodies and uses the token as fuel, really, in the various projects. And some of the reasons why this has happened these days rather than 20 or 30 years ago are important. This is a true mathematical invention in cryptography, combining various things that were floating around in computer science before, and it is a real financial innovation. As such, it is disrupting a lot of industries, the industry of funding foremost, and it is not surprising that exciting companies like Wealthe Migrate are taking advantage of this new tool and offering the benefits of the tool to their investors as well.
Thank you, David. And with that, Scott, I'll hand it back to you, so that you can outline what offer you're making to the Global Wealth Group, and we'll stay on board to answer any questions.
Great. So, guys, I think really in terms of the background, and I just wanted to kind of, before we get started, if I go back to the screen here, and sorry, I've been trying to play around a little bit so that I wasn't disrupting, but if I just take you through, really who the team are and how they are. And then the second thing that I wanted to share with you was that we went through, and what we've just been through now was really this section here, which was, who is the NSL team? Could you just talk through a little bit what I think is important here is just why is NSL and your team, Scott, why are you guys world class? A lot of people, particularly when there's these, I don't want to call it a fad. I think the world is changing fast. But as you know, there's a lot of people that talk a good game. What makes you guys different from 20 other people that can promise, that you can help us do an ICO? We want to be a world-class company. We built a company based on world-class partnerships. What makes you guys world-class?
Let me chime in that, if I may, Scott. Apologies if I preempt your answer.
Okay.
I see that in one of your slides you are quoting Singularity University and how informing for your team was to attend Exponential Finance. I am part of the team that designed Singularity University 10 years ago. I'm an advisor, a member of the faculty, and an investor in Singularity University's Accelerator Fund. And I am a blockchain investor and a blockchain user since Bitcoin user since 2010. So if you make some calculations there, what the value of Bitcoin was then, you can draw some conclusions, as well as I've been the first person to own Ether on the planet. Actually, for 24 hours, I had all the Ether of Earth because there was a glitch in the issue of the tokens. I'm a mentor at Peter Thiel's fellowship, where Vitalik Buterin is a recipient of our fellowship as well. And in these years, I have invested in, advised, and helped numerous Bitcoin blockchain companies, as well as invested in Bitcoin and blockchain funds, such as Blockchain Capital, funded by Brock Pierce. So these are some of the credentials. Obviously, the latest incarnation of the tools that we are talking about, ICOs, are so rapidly evolving in terms of both best practices, and you may have touched upon things like capped or uncapped or hidden cap, and also the regulatory environment and the arbitrage opportunities that exist amongst various jurisdictions. So these are all components that make the kind of excellent team that I wanted to form when I created Network Society Lab and when I appointed Scott as chairman. And it is, for me, really a pleasure to be able to work in both with Scott and Randy and other members of the Network Society Lab team who have the opportunity then to take on clients like Wealthe Migrate that we believe has an excellent opportunity to make a world-class presence with its token and the platform that it supports in forwarding and making concrete steps ahead in your strategic planning.
Yeah, thanks, David. I can add something to that if you like, or not. You know, Scott, if we, conscious of the time. So, just a couple of points I would make on top of what David said is, we've been able to attract, to our, token sale event team, the absolute highest achievers and performers in the game. And I think part of the reason why we are able to do that is because we're affiliated with a venture firm that invests in very cutting-edge ventures, and we do a due diligence process, and everything that we invest in is a very solid business that's got solid fundamentals and has the potential to be a very significant company. The stuff that we bring to the table on the client sourcing side, for lack of a better word, is of extremely high quality. And so people are now very much reacting to that because they want something where the fundamentals are solid. And that is something that Wealthe Migrate fulfills. And so because of that, I'm able to call up a guy that I've known for 25 years. I'm dating myself by saying that I met him in the CD-ROM business in the early 90s. Who just so happens to be the #1 PR person in the entire cryptocurrency world. And he's done over 40 of these, and he's made quite a bit of money in investing in cryptocurrencies. And so he's an investor as well, and he knows the community of people that are investing, which we have also come to know. So he's kind of the whole package. He's a very high-level advisor who's got tons of experience. He is an investor himself, and he's the best PR person in the business. And so that's the type of individual that we would bring into this situation for one of the slots on our team. And I think the reason why that those people are interested in working with us is that we've got very good quality companies exclusively. We don't, we aren't doing token sale events just to do token sale events. We're doing them, with good quality companies where a token is something that is meaningful and justifiable, useful in the context of their business. Not just because we want to do another token sale event. So that would be. Does that answer your question, Scott?
No, I think very much so. And I'm also wanting to share with others some of the stuff that I've learned from you already. And one of the things that I think is important is with the caliber of people that are on this team and with the incredible demand that is out there, I think it's quite significant that not only are we impressed by the level of networks and skills you guys have, and I know, Scott, you spoke about being part of some network or something. I don't know exactly, but there's like 40 blockchain people, and what is it again exactly?
It's the Blockchain Investment Consortium, which is essentially everybody who's significant in the world who's a established fund that invests in blockchain businesses, and we're one of the founding members of that. And one of the things
that's my point. And then you talk about David, and he's explained how to design the token. One of the things I want to be very clear tonight is that we don't know everything. We're not sitting here trying to go, this is the token, this is exactly how it's going to work, this is the use case, blah, blah, blah. We're not doing that. What we're doing is we're saying, guys, we believe that we found world-class partners that can understand our business and help us create a world-class solution in terms of the token. So that's really important in terms of just understanding their background. And you've explained to some extent, why, because again, it's not like, when we met you, and I think most people know me well enough, and when Kevin and I are kind of working together, people go, when do you want to do this? And I think they kind of expect us to say 6 to 12 months. And when I met Scott, I was like, yesterday. And, from your guys, you also had to drop a few things to enable to be able to jump on this for us. And I think you've probably said enough already, but if I sum you up and tell me if I get anything wrong, one is because there's a real focus on our asset-backed cryptocurrencies, which is what we are. Secondly, real estate is a well-known asset around the world. And thirdly, I'd like to think, from an operational perspective, we've got an existing business. We've fallen well beyond a proof of concept. And fourthly, I'm putting words in your mouth, but to some extent, we've been checking each other out over the last couple of weeks with a couple of meetings, and I presume at some level you believe that we as a team can execute. Otherwise, you wouldn't be wasting your time either.
Well, absolutely, and as Scott, but maybe the people on the call don't. In terms of the compensation package that we enjoy in working with Wealth Migrate, the biggest chunk of that is Wealth Migrate token. So our interests are 100% aligned with the company to do whatever we can do to make the token successful and to help it appreciate through time, because we benefit from that as much as you would benefit from that.
Cool. So, you've spoken about the process, and hopefully I unfortunately can't see what people can see, but I just wanted to get you. So really it's a step where you go through planning, then you do the token design, then you get the white paper out. You've already spoken through the different steps in terms of that process. Just tell me quickly before I move on, what is in it for people who get in early? It's all good and well. Yes, there's talk. Yes, we've got to go and get the token design. Why do people get in early? From your side, David, why did you get into Ether early, versus waiting till now when it's all established and everything else? What's the upside?
Well,
go ahead.
I want to tell everybody that you are not late. This is just at the beginning. There are about 7 billion people in the world who don't know anything about Bitcoin or Ether. So you are way ahead of everybody, right? And just because the exchange rate of Bitcoin to the US dollar is now at heights that haven't been reached before of 4,000 plus, and Ether is 400 plus. It doesn't mean that they are not worth starting to play with. And then how much eventually you buy of each, and whether you want to hold them or trade them or things like that. I, for example, personally do not trade. I don't have the time or the kind of mental skills that would be required. I believe that there is a long-term opportunity here, and the same is true for the Wealth Migrate token. There's a long-term opportunity to align your interests as investors in equity and owners of the token that you receive as a bonus. And the value that the network of a platform that is getting digitized and tokenized gains by mashing together, weaving together different stakeholders is far superior than not the previous governance models. That is really the value in carrying through with the ICO. Definitely is great for the team and the project and the company. It is great for you as you receive the bonus, but the biggest value is in participating in the business model innovation that is as revolutionary and more than what happened in the first wave of internet as it started to disrupt existing businesses. So the biggest value on top of the financial gain that you may experience is that you will be part of the future that is unstoppably coming.
So David, with that, it's a perfect introduction. I'm a big visual person, and I want to be very clear here. Nothing's finalized. It's literally a work in progress. But I just want to have a bit of fun. And we basically put our designer, Sean Killen, is amazing, and put together some ideas for our coin so people can just visually see it. We've come up with a name. And again, this is not with Scott Miser or David or Randy, but it was just internally between us. We were talking about the Wealthe coin, the whole kind of play on words with Wealthe. If those of you know Healthy, the long life guys, that's really where it came from. W actually stands for wealth, and so even when you take the tagline, as they call it, I forget the hashtag tagline. The idea was to do WRE, which is wealth in real estate. So I want to kind of move on to, and I'm just playing, but the point being is people can start to visualize, they can start to see, it can start to become a reality in terms of what we're talking. We've been through the team and the different areas. We've been through for people to get in early. I think really for the proposal for the shareholders and as you guys know, the wealth partners, is that really we as wealth partners are always investing and have done to date in shares. We've also spoken about the warrant side, and the whole logic was recognizing the people that have invested in terms of the quantums of where they are. And then really what got exciting for me when I really understood and spent some time with Scott was that they have a way within their smaller internal communities before they go out into the market where they can make the benefit hugely beneficial from a token perspective. And so what we discussed was, rather than confusing things, why don't we just put it all together? So with the same amount of money, people can get access to actually all three. I always believe risks are something that one needs to look at. So one of the things that the board today, believe it or not, spent 2.5 hours discussing were what are the risks. If the market is going to collapse, how do we deal with it? And what really Scott came up with was, initially they normally would charge $75,000 up front to be able to go out and to be able to execute. But what they agreed to do to minimize that risk is that they will work. So we'll put down a down payment of $37,500, and they will work with us on a plan. They'll work with us on the token designs, everything that David has just said in terms of how we, basically put together a world-class token. And then, so really, worst case scenario, if all of this is a load of hot air, and no disrespect to anyone on the call, but then it would be effectively $37,500. The intention, though, would be to ensure that it's done properly. So not necessarily, we want to launch obviously as soon as feasibly possible. However, that might be longer than we want, but we've got to take as long as it takes to do it properly. So the most important thing that Justin Clark specifically wants is to make sure, and I know Scott and Justin have had conversations around this, to make sure we build something world-class, because if the world's going to change and there's going to be corrections, which will happen, we believe, is that's not a problem as long as you build something world-class, And then once you've done that, you go to the second stage, which is you basically create the white paper, which is where you can effectively go out publicly from a business. And then from an individual perspective, you know, as a shareholder, and please remember, I'm investing $125,000 of my own hard-earned cash, just like others. So is Henny. So I'm now talking as an individual. There's effectively no risk. There's zero risk because I'm investing my money and I'm getting the shares and I'm getting the warrant and I'm effectively getting the token for free. And therefore, you know, if the token is a overwhelming success, I get all the upside. And if it's a resounding failure, it doesn't make any difference because I'm still a Wealth partner. I get my shares and all the upside from that side. Now that's not normal. And normally when you do tokens, like we discussed, it's all just about the token and there's not actually shares. We married the two together, but that's why tonight's a private offer just for the Wealth partners. It's not a public offer. So really to put that into a visual look and feel is that on the share side, most of you will know that if you invest less than $200,000, it's a Class B share. There's no warrant, but you will get a token. So if you invest $10,000, you will, you know, you'll get Class B shares. You won't get a warrant, but you will get tokens. Okay. If you invest greater than $200,000, you get a Class A share, which is voting. You've got the warrant at $3.50 a share for 3 years, and you'll get a token. I think the warrant, we had a number of discussions from some of the bigger investors that invested already more than $200,000. And what was agreed by the board is that if you've invested already previously more than $200,000 and you invest another 25 or 50, then you would also get that amount as a warrant and you'll get the equivalent as a token. And then lastly, to make it completely fair, is that a number of people, as part of the $2.5 million round, have already invested. We're sitting, I think, with cash in the bank of around $300,000, if I'm right. Kevin, you can tell me if I'm right or wrong. And so what we wanted to do was to be very fair. And so the first 0 to 1 million, the first people that invest will get 100% of their cash given back in free tokens. So in simple mindset, we're going to go out, we're going to work with David and Scott and Randy and the team, and we're going to design a world-class token. Now, let's say that that token equates to $1 per token. If you've invested $100,000, what that means is you're going to get $100,000 of tokens for free. So you're going to get literally 100,000 tokens. If you're in the second tranche, which is where it's $1 million to $2 million, then you will get 70% of your. Now remember, you're getting all your money in shares, but this is a complete bonus for free. You will get 70% of it in tokens. And if you're in the third tranche, which is $2 to $3 million, then you'll get 50% of it in free tokens. And as I said, they're going to be evolved and developed to be as world-class as possible. Even, you know, from a risk perspective, there's nothing because you're actually getting the shares anyway. And just from a timing perspective, we want to incentivize the people that get in early versus the people that get in late. Now, that then takes us into the pre-ICO stage where there'll be no more shares and there'll be no warrants. And that'll be an open bonus structure like you saw on Property, where they kind of break it down by the day. And it's pretty much how Scott Miser said. And there you look to raise, again, quote me, tell me if I'm wrong, Scott, but somewhere between 25 to 30% of the total amount. I want to be very clear here. We are looking to raise $20 million from our token sale. We're very clear on the number. Every single morning I do my goals, and I every single morning out loud tell the universe that we want to raise $20 million and have done for more than 12 months now. And then we'll go to the ICO crowd stage. And again, there'll be no shares, there'll be no, so therefore no dilution for the shareholders, which are all of us guys, but same within the bonus structure. So that's really it. I think really from my perspective, while we've got everyone online, and I know some of them need to duck, I'm not sure, Kevin, if we want to move, if there's any questions specifically from the Wealth partners. There's a couple of things that I want to finish off in conclusion, but most importantly, I want to leave this screen on to ask if there's any questions or anything that I've missed, Kevin or Scott or Randy or David, that you want to kind of discuss around this and the timing of where we're at. Kevin, if you can let me know if there's questions. Sorry, I'm not seeing the questions.
God, you've just changed the screen though.
Sorry, I don't know why. Whenever I try to go to the main screen, I lose my PowerPoint screen.
Yeah, can everyone hear me?
Got
Yes.
you clearly, Scott.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I got some difficulty in seeing things. So Yeah, the one point I wanted to make is this 20 million figure that's the target is a very doable amount. You know, so you can see crops still got 15 days and they're at 13 million. So you know, that I wouldn't call 20 million an ambitious amount of money in any way. So that I have a high level of confidence that will be able to be achieved.
Right. Well, Scott, that's why we want to have people like you guys on the team, because, you know, to unlock this generational opportunity and to build out the technology, the platform, and everything that we've planned for, and the marketplace rollout to grow the demand worldwide, you know, that's the type of capital we're going to be able to need to be able to deploy properly in a sustainable way, and ultimately to be able to execute, you know. Any other questions, Kevin, from your side? Are there any questions coming up that anyone's asking?
So in terms of some of the questions just coming from the Wealth partners, and you can keep them coming, is just there was one question just from Sean just around NSL's sort of success rate in terms of raising at token sales, and what NSL would think would be a good estimated target for Wealth Migrate.
Unfortunately, Kevin, you're cutting out, so I'm not hearing the question. Can you repeat that?
Sure. Sorry. The question just was around NSL sort of other token sales. You know, what sort of level of funding was reached, and the second part of the question just was what sort of level do you think Wealth Migrate could raise? You've already said 20 million is sort of a target that we should achieve, but
yeah. So let me answer that. There are two companies actually represented here, right? Network Society Ventures, which is a seed stage investment firm, and I decided recently, because I felt it was the best, most transparent, most uncountable way to operate Network Society Lab. So previously to this separation, we participated in some of the most successful ICOs, such as Blockchain Capital that I mentioned, that raised $20 million in less than an hour, or Bancor that for some time with over $135 million was one of the largest ICOs ever, and then it was superseded quickly by others, and now the largest is over $200 million Filecoin. So these are some of the successes under our belt.
Okay, great. So then someone just said, under the value proposition side, please can you explain the tokens again? Essentially, I mean, the token design still needs to be done. So I don't think, I mean, there really is any explaining that we can do right now. I don't know if anyone else wants to just comment on that.
So Scott, could you explain that, because that's really important. I mean, that was at the heart of the 2.5-hour board meeting, which was around, well, surely we've got to know it all before we kind of get going. And to be very clear, what I explained to the board was, no, we have to agree that these are the right partners we want to get going with, which I believe we've done, and then get started with your expertise, taking what we've got and like Jaco Maritz and all the technology that's been built, and then build a world-class token. So this is really an agreement to get started and to go and build it. We're not trying to present what it's going to be, because it's a work in progress.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the token design, one of the most the process where, and David is, our tokens we are very creative and figure what rules you want to have the token's going to be governed by. That's how how to behave. What are the rules around the tokens, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Everything about the dynamics, if you will, about the token gets decided in this. And then once that's nailed down, then you do what's called a white paper, which is the equivalent of a private placement memorandum in the equity world, where you talk about the business, the risks, and also the design of the token, and that's the on which people make an investment or a purchase decision at the IC. So, right, Kevin, that right now we don't have any idea what the token's going to look like, but I can guarantee it's going to be a great. And this is why we're focusing on that as the first thing in this.
I can give you an analogy. A few years ago, there was a company that was leading its sector, and they really didn't believe in digital. They said people will always be happy to come to our stores, enjoy our service, bring home the video cassettes, and then pay the late fees. Netflix is not even on the horizon of our competitive landscape. And this company was called Blockbuster. Or there was another company that, even though they originally invented the digital version of their product, they would say there's never going to be any photographer that will stop buying chemical cameras. They will always prefer the Kodak experience. And they went bankrupt. So what you are on the verge of experiencing today is the next stage of digital revolution, where the business processes themselves are turned digital. What is your business model and how rapidly it can evolve in order to adapt to future needs? That is what the token is going to support. As part of the question, I heard, if I'm not mistaken, a question or a part of the question about the value of the token. So it is very important to realize that the token will enable a network to flourish, the network of the various stakeholders that participate in Wealth Migrate's business. And the granularity, the flexibility, the richness of features that is going to be possible to develop, not in 3 months, but let's say in 3 years, is going to be unprecedented. And as a consequence, the token will be desirable because very simply there will be features that will be possible to enjoy only if you use the token to make them work. And since there is a limited supply of tokens, and it will be mathematically impossible to Wealth Migrate to flood the market with additional tokens, the fact that these tokens will potentially appreciate if Wealth Migrate is capable of executing on its plan is going to be a very natural consequence. That is not something that we can promise, and nobody should ever do that. But if things are done well, that is what is going to happen.
Sure, David.
Right.
No pressure on the team to execute. A question. I don't know, Scott, if Scott's had to go. I know that he got serious time pressure, but one of the things that I asked was that we've already got the global roadshow planned. I mean, we literally hit London on the 12th of September, and then we've got Dubai, and then we've got South Africa, America, Australia, and then we hit China and Southeast Asia in October, well, effectively October through November. And what Scott and Randy and Kevin and myself and the others that have been involved have been trying to work backwards as to whether it'd be possible within the timeframes. Now, it doesn't have to be, it's not mandatory. I mean, we can still necessarily talk about it coming, and we'll let them know when the white paper happens. But based on what you've experienced as Scott, what are your kind of, and I don't know, Randy, maybe from your side, but what are your kind of timeframes and expectations? And I'd love Jaco Maritz, if he's online, to jump in as well, because not only do we want to be doing the white paper, but we also want to be doing the technology and bringing it out in 3 phases. And I think it'd be worth both of you just sharing.
Well, that's something that's going to, be determined as we, as we go through this planning phase, this initial phase, which involves the planning and the token design. So we'll have the answer to this question at that point in time. Here, let me unpause myself here. So we'll have the answer to that question, after this first, phase. But just, as a general spitball, if we pushed it, we could probably get the ICO done before the end of the year. That may or may not be advisable, however. And there's a lot of factors involved, including who you really expect to raise the money from, what's going on in their local situation. Like, for instance, if you were raising money in China, you have to think about Chinese New Year in February, blah, blah, blah. Bottom line is, my expectation is that we would end up having the ICO live somewhere between sometime in November, December to sometime in Q1. If we did it in Q1, that would give us plenty of time. But we won't make that decision after we've considered a lot of factors. But that's the general range I say people should expect. It'll happen sometime between November and March. And March is kind of far out there. So I would expect it wouldn't be more likely to be January, February than it is to be March. But that's the brackets, I think, on the time frame.
And I think, Scott, just to add to that, those of you that remember from, sorry, I'm getting bad echo. Just to add to you in terms of timing, what we agreed at the Wealthe weekend, which was then taken to the board, which was signed off by the board and approved in terms of the budget, was with a $2.5 million funding round, we would basically be able to continue to build the business and grow in strength for another 12 months, which effectively took us through to the Q3 next year. On top of that, to do the ICO properly, globally, you're looking at about $500,000. Now, remember, that's all PR marketing, so it's all building the brand back towards and building demand effectively. So, it's a 1 + 1 = 3 equation. And that's really where the $3 million comes from, is that I believe internally from our network, if we can raise that $3 million, then it allows Scott and his team to be able to help us deploy at the optimal time when we're ready, while building the business in parallel and continuing to grow the business from strength to strength. And I just want to explain, it's the 2.5 plus the 500, that's where the 3 million comes from. And that allows us not to have to rush anything based on what Scott's talking about. So I just wanted to kind of join the two dots. Jaco, from your perspective, I know that you wanted to, you've had some conversations, which I think are, I know you haven't even had a proper time to talk to David or Scott or Randy around the technology we've already got and what we can bring together. Let's not go into too much detail, but I know you were talking kind of September, October, November with kind of three launches to an extent.
Yes, Scott, to just make sure that you can hear me. I think we would like to take a phased approach to this. Obviously, there's a lot of learnings to be had, both on the wallet, the Bitcoin, Achtercoin, the exchange, integrating into exchange, Ethereum learnings that we're busy with at the moment. I think getting the exchange up, a couple of phases that we would like to do towards the year. This is all dependent on resources, etc. But I definitely think there's a possibility for us to have it live before the mid December. Launching it properly, I agree with Scott and with the gentleman that yes, we rather do it right than just rush it. But we would like to have a workable proof of works and a workable demo by the end of November. So I think we're working towards that already, and hopefully we'll be able to deliver that.
And guys, I mean, just from Scott's perspective and Randy's perspective and David's perspective, I really look forward to you guys getting your head under the bonnet and actually seeing what we've built, and more importantly, what Jaco's got planned. And in our ecosystem with the partners, we've got some of our tech partners, how we can bring stuff together. This is far more than an idea, if that makes sense.
Wonderful. So, I am definitely looking forward to that.
Sorry, David. Sorry, David, I cut you off. I apologize.
I am looking forward to learn definitely about the platform and the future roadmap for its development, because it is essential in order to be able and reflect that in the functionality of the token that will be intimately intertwined in what you are delivering through your alternative means as well.
Great. David, there's another question here that I think possibly is good for you to answer. Is just asking, what would the incentive be from the market to buy the token, let's say in 5 years when the price is extremely high? So that's someone's question.
So just as Bitcoin today, which is $4,000 plus, if somebody has $40 or $10, they can still buy a fraction. I have 3 children, right? And whatever chores they do, big or small, I reward them, paying them not in dollars, but I pay them in Bitcoin or Ether. And it is just a fraction. So similarly with the Wealth Migrate token, it is going to be possible to buy a fraction of it. And there are 2 principal reasons for doing so. One, because the technology platform uses it. So even without realizing, just by participating in the Wealth Migrate platform, you will put the tokens in motion. And the second reason is because you expect them to further appreciate. But just because at the time, hopefully the price will be high, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be able to buy any amount you want.
Okay, great. Awesome. Thank you. I'm
just conscious of the time there, Kevin, so
yes,
let me know.
Absolutely. We actually, I mean, the other questions just, I still think that there may be a little bit of confusion around tokens and how they get used. Again, because there are different types of tokens, you know, I think some people are getting confused, asking, you know, is an investment in this token going to be an investment in real estate, and those sort of questions. There's a question just around what actually drives that value appreciation.
So let me give you an example. All of you probably are familiar with Skype. And Skype was born before Bitcoin. But they were thinking about certain things that were at the time quite similar, because Skype was decentralized. And Skype had Skype credits that you bought with money, but that was their name, Skype credits. And when eBay acquired Skype originally, they for a time were toying with the idea of letting people pay or bid on eBay products using Skype credits. Now, Skype credits would never float. Their value would never change. Today, what is possible is to design a system that is decentralized. It has a representation of certain things that you can do within the system, and the exchange rate of the tokens within that platform float in time. And so obviously the Wealth Migrate platform will be radically different from Skype. This is just an analogy, but within the Wealth Migrate platform there will be functions, just as in order to call a normal phone number you need Skype credits. In the Wealth Migrate platform there will be functions that will be put in motion by the use of the tokens. That doesn't mean that individual people will need to use their credit cards to buy the tokens or whatever else. It will be just part of how the system works.
Yeah.
Sure, David. I personally could listen to you all night. I'm intrigued, and yeah, I think, you know, if I look at this poll here, you know, people are pretty much saying, you know, wow, let's get started, and you know, it's really quite exciting. Kevin, I'm not sure if there's any other important questions. The one thing that I did want to share, and we've got 32% of votes on the last poll. This last poll is an important one. I'd appreciate if you just take the time to put it up. I'll give it another 30 seconds or so, but just go to the poll and click on it. It's important. I'd like to know your thoughts. But why I'm saying that is that Randy's been working really hard on putting an FAQ together, answering a lot of these questions. So does it link to real estate? What part of it? How does the process work? When does the design come? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we're actually working on that. We chose consciously not to send it out before this webinar for obvious reasons. And but now what we will do is we will take it away. We'll even take some of the questions that have been put on the webinar, and we'll add it to the FAQ, so we can really start to build out a holistic document to be able to answer as many questions as we possibly can. You know, so I'm going to give it another 10 seconds quickly on the poll. If you can just, if you haven't done it now, you know, stop playing on Facebook or whatever you're doing, and do the poll. So anyway, so I'm going to close out the poll, and if I share my screen with you, you should be able to see. I've got a Word document. Can you see the Word document, Kevin?
Yeah.
So yeah, so I mean, this is the work that Randy's done. It's a work in progress, obviously, as we've been getting questions. So even as Justin Clark got asked the questions, Ken, our GM in China, asked questions. So we're really trying to build out a kind of a knowledge base. We understand that, you know, someone like David and Scott and Randy have been playing in the space for a while. Many of you are brand new to it. Some of us, like Kevin and myself and a few others, have really been trying to deep dive, you know, over the last couple of months. We really want to kind of build out this knowledge. So I want to just share with you a couple of things, and then call it. And you know, Scott Miser, if you need to leave, I know you said you had to. I'd like to just finish quickly, and then if there's any last questions, we can deal with it with Randy and David. But in simple terms, guys, you know, this for me is a visualization coming true. You know, this is something that Jaco and I have spoken about for honestly years. We never knew we were going to meet Scott. We never knew we were going to meet Randy and subsequently David. But I truly believe the world is changing. They are global leaders in the space, and hopefully tonight you really got a feel for that and what is actually happening. You know, I think when you go through what the team has done, they've explained the process and how it actually works, and most importantly, you know, why there's so much value. You know, at the end of the day, David spoke about the value that's created and our children and how he shares it with his kids. You know, ultimately what we're saying to our wealth partners is these tokens are free. Like, they're free, like there's no risk, but it's only for wealth partners, because we're investing in getting our shares anyway, and we're in tokens for free. Once we go out into the pre-sale market, you know, that won't be the case, basically. We've given the proposal, we've been through the risks, and we've also looked at it from an individual perspective. This is the value proposition. We will follow this up tomorrow with a letter and email, so that it's for everyone so they can see it. I wanted to share with you a couple of concluding thoughts. Do you know that yesterday on Facebook, I got a little post that came up, and it was literally 3 years ago yesterday that we closed Medical One. It was our first major commercial deal that we did. It was a $16 million deal, nearly $6 million in equity. We raised it from investors on 5 different continents. And I actually made this post. I said, this truly defines the future of crowdfunding real estate and the power of going global. I'm so grateful to be at the forefront of one of the biggest industry changes ever in this sector, due to revolutionize real estate completely and be worth 90 and 96 billion by 2025. The best part is we can all benefit, and that is why our slogan is creating global wealth for all. Wealth is no longer only for a few, and returns are no longer diluted by the middlemen. now is available to all. Wealth to the future of real estate. Welcome to the future of real estate. And I think hopefully Scott is still online, but I found it absolutely serendipitous that literally 3 years and 1 day later, we're having this conversation where the technology now can really help us 10x this and really turn this dream, into a reality. I also wanted to share some good news. We've been going, Justin Clark and Martin Freeman joined the board, and they really asked us to bring in, really build the engineering capabilities, and we've managed to tonight get a really world-class person to join the team internally from a tech perspective. They've been interviewed by Justin Clark, by JP and the guys at Singular, and it really is exciting that they're joining. And then lastly, I just want to share with you some dates. We've all got friends and family around the world. We're launching in the UK on the 12th and 14th of September. We've got the UAE on the 19th of September. In South Africa, we've got our events. The 3rd of October in Cape Town, we'll have a wealth partner dinner. We've got a really exciting event that we put together. It's going to be equities, real estate, and cryptos, how to create wealth with technology. And it's going to be a partnership with Easy Equities and ourselves and Willem van der Post doing the cryptos. And then we're going to do a separate wealth partner dinner. So please put these dates in your diary. 3rd of October in Cape Town, 4th of October in Durban, and the 11th of October in Joburg and Pretoria. We then go to America, where we'll be working with our American partners. And then we go to Australia. You can see the back end of October and November. And, from my perspective, the plan is then to go to China and Southeast Asia in November as we continue our marketplace rollout. And hopefully in parallel, we'll be doing this whole ICO or token sale as Scott said. But at least you've got an idea of the dates. And again, we'll follow this up in email. So I want to give you a concluding thought. You've seen this 100 times, but repetition's the mother of skill. Is that this is my wife and son. He's learning at a very young age that to buy red houses and green hotels and to earn a passive income is smart investing. A wonderful team has turned that game into a reality. And this is a real-life global portfolio, my global portfolio, based on residential and commercial properties across 4 continents and from as little as $100. And we believe that that is a truly diversified, investment based on an asset-backed, it's effectively an intrinsic value asset. And we believe that's smart investing. But imagine taking this to another level and adding a cryptocurrency level, which truly is smart investing. The wealthiest people out there, they have family offices and they personalize what works for them. They marry it together with the best opportunities globally. And ultimately, they create generational wealth. And that is what we call smart investing. And as our vision, our mission is to make investing as simple as a swipe of a finger from $1. We believe when we can do that, we will literally solve the greatest challenge on the planet, which is the wealth gap. And we want to put smart investing in every single person's pocket. And many of you have seen this PowerPoint before, but what you haven't seen is that I believe we can now enable it with blockchain. I believe we can enable it with the tool which will remove the friction costs and allow it to happen. And so with deep gratitude, I wanted to thank David, Scott, and Randy for being online tonight. I'm not sure if there's any burning questions that we can finish off with, Kevin, but I am conscious of the time. And to all of you that have been online tonight, it's wonderful to share this experience. I think, David, you summed it up perfectly. Being part of the Wealth Partner community is not only about the return on investment for the money that our hard-earned money that we've all invested, but it's about being part of a global community, globally like-minded people that are at the forefront of technology, where it's going, and most importantly, that can make an impactful, purposeful change on the planet. And for me, I've got deep gratitude to be part of this group, and it's awesome to have so many of you online tonight and enjoying this experience. So thank you to all of you for being online and all the team members as well. So Kevin, I'm not sure if there's anything from your side, any closing thoughts, comments, questions, and then we'll look to wrap up.
Just the first thing I wanted to share was that, again, you've put up their next steps, which is to contact me. Essentially, this is an offer for wealth partners. So everyone, who is a current wealth partner, and it is a really exciting opportunity. So please do contact me. I can see my phone is sitting here, and I've already got 4 emails. So everyone's saying I want to be in that first million. So great, thank you very much, everybody. In terms of questions, there's there's just one here from Martin. I think he's just trying to have a little bit of fun around around the name. But otherwise, you know, really the only question that's standing out right now that is left is just sort of, you know, what is the worst case scenario if legislation around the whole world changes before we actually, you know, is that a possibility that legislation is gonna jam us?
No. If you're watching what's going on in the States, let me make a comment. If you're watching what's going on in the States right now, you know the answer is absolutely not. Nothing's going to get done.
My comment is less political, is more around the technology trend. And I will lead with an example once again. You may remember a company called Napster that, based on new technologies, wanted to revolutionize the music industry. And they were killed by over 140 simultaneous lawsuits that they couldn't resist and threw in the towel, not surprisingly. Very few people know that the $8 billion that Skype was finally sold to Microsoft are founded on a successor technology to Napster, which was evolved because of that legal pressure. And today's world, which is globally interconnected, is such that countries can decide to be in the regulatory rear guard of true fintech innovation. And some of them appear to want to gain that not great position. But others recognize that it's better to embrace the future, even if it is challenging. And everybody deciding that progress is bad and we should stop and we shouldn't even experiment is not going to happen. It took 20 years to reinvent the Napster model because Apple Music or Amazon Prime Music or Spotify, whatever is your choice, is basically the same. It will not take 20 years for the full promise of blockchain technologies and tokens to revolutionize digital business models.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Great. I mean, thanks so much, David. There are no more questions, just me wanting to clarify two things. For everybody who has already invested since the Wealth Weekend, so that's the $400,000 that has come in. Of course, those people are the first 400,000 of the million. So that was some people's concern. And then in terms of
sorry, Kevin,
yes,
just quickly, our three core values are trust, transparency, and alignment. We always respect and we never forget, and that's why we would never consider not doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And just in terms of new wealth partners, of course, new wealth partners coming on board, this does not apply. I mean, this is for current wealth partners. And then I just wanted to end with Clive Miller's comment saying, we will never learn about ICOs from looking from the outside in. It's time for us to just go ahead and do one ourselves. But we will stop calling them an ICO from now on, and we will call it a token sale event. And so here's to the up and coming token sale event. I look forward to an inbox that is full of requests. David, over to you. You looked like you wanted to say something.
Yeah,
I fully agree. The value of learning is very, very important, and learning together with people like yourselves is going to be also something that Network Society Lab gains in executing this project together.
Yeah, and the only thing the final thing I wanted to add is that we are grateful to be on this journey with you. We really like the Wealth Migrate guys. We love the business, and we look forward to working with you to make the TSE a great success.
Awesome, guys.
Awesome.
Well, listen, thank you very much for everyone's time. Yaku, hopefully you're sitting there with a big smile on your face, because I think we found a solution to turn your blockchain dream into a reality. I know I'm certainly sitting with a smile on my face, because now the vision is one step closer, and the reality to solving this having a purposeful impact on the planet is one step closer. So to everyone online tonight, thank you very much. We're deeply, deeply grateful to you guys for sharing your wise words to the questions. And the good news is that from the NSL guys, there's been an overwhelmingly positive response from the entire community. And so we'll be definitely, not that in my opinion it should ever been a debate, but we want to make sure that we make community decisions, and we've now got full community commitment to push on. And so from tomorrow we get that foot on the accelerator and get going. So thank you very much to everyone online for giving us your opinion. Thank you guys for your time, and let's get started.
Great. Thank you, everybody, and good night or good morning wherever you are.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.